the fastest men on Earth.
A rainy afternoon in Tokyo, he set his successors a fearsome task. How do you follow perfection? For the next 4 years, America considered the question. Then, in Mexico City, she delivered her answer. Great athletes dream of winning Olympic titles. The greatest dream of destroying world records in the process. 20 years ago, a young man from Oakland, California, fulfilled that daring dream. Yet somehow, history has chosen to forget his achievement, and even his name.
I don't think it'll be remembered as a Jesse Owens, possibly not even a Bob Hayes, but when they start talking about sprinters and people who understand track and field, you know, the name Jim Hines will have to be brought up.
Yet in the years which preceded the Games of Mexico, the name of Jim Hines was impossible to ignore. He was a man with an Olympic future, and at Texas Southern College in Houston, he was assisted by Bobby Morrow, a legend of the Olympic past. But Olympic historians will always link Jim Hines with another famous name. Charlie Green was a fierce rival, a fast talker, a dazzling sprinter, and a man who was not afflicted by false modesty.
I'm ranked number 1 in the world in 1966 by Track and Field News. And I'll end up being ranked number 2 in 1967 by Track and Field News. But, you know, when you talk about a sprinter and the best in the world, you're talking about Charlie Green.
The rivalry yielded a series of epic races between the two men. And on a summer evening in Sacramento in 1968, they created track history. Between them, they broke or equaled the world 100-meter record 4 times in 2 hours. Hines, the first of the pair to break the 10-second barrier, was installed as America's Olympic favorite. But the Mexico Games were to be born amid scenes of violence and bloodshed. 10 days before the opening ceremony, the Army opened fire on a student demonstration in the center of Mexico City. 260 people were killed. More than 1,200 were injured. The country moved to the brink of revolution. Yet the Games went ahead, only to be tarnished by more provocative actions inside the stadium. When Tommy Smith and John Carlos stood on the victory rostrum with heads bowed and fists clenched in a black power salute, they offered one of the most enduring and disturbing images of the modern Olympics. Despite the turmoil, it was widely predicted that there would be a crop of world records in the thin air of a city standing 7,000 feet above sea level. Certainly the sprinters and jumpers reveled in the conditions. Britain's David Hemery stripped 7/10 of a second from the 400 meters hurdles record. Lee Evans of America returned an astonishing 43.8 seconds for the flat 400. And, most memorable of all, Bob Beamon made a mockery of the world long jump record with a leap of 29 feet 2.5 inches. Jim Hines, meanwhile, had been forced to work hard in his qualifying heats, and he felt the need for some relaxation. So, on the night before the 100 meters final, he bought 2 bottles of champagne and traveled across town to visit his wife, Joyce.
I persuaded her to let me in. I got in, and she was acting all like she didn't even know me. Drank the champagne. She wouldn't drink any with me. It's time to go to bed. I told her, come on, let's go to bed. She says, what do you mean go to bed? I said, we're married, aren't we?
The next day, a relaxed Hines won his semi-final in style. Charlie Green had not been able to relax, but he also won his semi-final. The classic American confrontation, which had been promised for 4 years, was now reality.
Individual ambitions and ideas had to be suppressed for the good of the whole. And the good of the whole in this particular case was that an American had to win 100 meters. Either him or I. It made no difference.
There is Charlie Green. He's grown a beard since you saw him last at the Olympic trials. Lane 3 is Jimmy Hines, number 279 there. Running next to him will be Lennox Miller as we move across, number 536 from Jamaica and the University of Southern California. Then Captain Mel Pender, almost 31 years old, and this is the last big try. Next to him, another dangerous threat, Roger Bambouk of France. The last two lanes, in lane 7, number 171, Harry Jerome, the veteran of Canada, bronze medalist in this event 4 years ago. And rounding out the field, the big surprise, Jean-Louis Ravella-Mansoa of Madagascar. It's a good start. Mel Pender got his usual great start. But now it's Jimmy Hines. Jimmy Hines is going to win the race. Jim Hines is the winner. Lennox Miller is second and Tony Jr. third. Jim Hines, who had such a difficult time in the earlier heats, who drew a very difficult semifinal, has come on to achieve it. A gold medal in the Olympic Games. The world's fastest human.
People are saying, wow, Jim Hines ran so fast because the altitude was thin. That race in Mexico City was the hardest race that I had ever ran in my life. That thin air did not assist me one bit. As a matter of fact, it might have hindered me.
The winning time was eventually rounded up to 9.95 seconds, but it was still a world record. Hines was content, and he'd put Charlie Green firmly in his place.
When the race was over with, I said, I didn't win. And I was not disappointed like I had been before in a major loss. I knew Jimmy had won, so we had accomplished one of the objectives, which was for an American to win.
So Jim Hines had achieved the American objective. Now he could claim the title, the fastest man on earth.
That was and still is the greatest feeling of my life. Once you become #1 in the world, there's nobody else who can take that away from you. I mean, you be declared the fastest man in the world and win that gold medal, there will never be anything else that will ever surpass that.
And in truth, nothing ever did. He took another gold medal from Mexico after running a superb relay leg, but when the games were over, he immediately signed a $150,000 contract with the Miami Dolphins. Sadly, unlike his hero, Bob Hayes, he was not a natural football player. His habit of dropping passes prompted the Miami fans to name him Oops, and he was no more fortunate when he moved on to Kansas and Oakland. After 7 years in football, he spent 3 years on the professional track circuit. But when that ended, he was simply an ex-Olympic champion in search of a job. Mexico was 10 years away. People had forgotten. Yet always he believed that America would remember the man who was once a hero, just as she remembered Jesse Owens after 20 years in limbo. Unfortunately, that has yet to happen. An autobiography was planned. There was a chance of television work. Neither materialized. He joined a sports agency in San Francisco. A few days after we filmed him there, that folded. Currently, Jim Hines is unemployed. At 41, and separated from his wife, he's still looking for the break which will translate his Mexico triumph into tangible reward. But he remains a philosophical man.
1968 Olympics were great for me. It was my time. And these other Olympics, for the other sprinters, is their time. I'm blessed today to still hold the Olympic record, which is, the 9.95. So I can pat myself on the back and say I did a hell of a job.
Meanwhile, he waits for history to agree with his own estimation of his talent.
The greatest sprinter, no doubt in my mind, is Jesse Owens. Jesse Owens and Jim Hines.